How do you find the probability of an event? You find the probability of an event by dividing the number of favorable outcomes by the number of possible outcomes. It can be given as a fraction, decimal, or percentage. The number of favorable outcomes is less than or equal to the number of possible outcomes. This is the case because possible outcomes include everything that can possibly happen, while favorable outcomes can be some of the things that can happen or all of them. Because of this, the probability will always be a value between 0 and 1, where the greater the probability, the more likely it is that the event will happen. Let's take a closer look through some examples. Let's say you're rolling a fair die with 6 faces. A fair die means that it is a balanced die, with an equal chance of landing on any of the 6 faces. The sample space for a fair die is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You decide you want to find the probability of rolling a 1. You do this by dividing the number of favorable outcomes by the number of possible outcomes. A smart notation to use to save time is P of 1. P is short for probabilis, which is the Latin word for probability. Inside the parentheses is the name or description of the event. Here, P of 1 is the probability of rolling a 1. Now it's time to calculate the probability. The number of favorable outcomes is 1, and the number of possible outcomes is 6. This means that the probability of rolling a 1 equals 1/6. Next, you decide to find the probability of rolling a value greater than or equal to 3. That would make 3, 4, 5, and 6 the favorable outcomes, still from a total of 6 possible outcomes. So to find the probability of rolling a 3 or greater, you take 4 over 6, which simplified comes to 2/3. Notice that the chance of rolling a value greater than or equal to 3 is higher than the probability of rolling a 1. That makes sense because there are more favorable outcomes when you want a value greater than or equal to 3 on a 6-sided die. Now, imagine you need to roll a 7 to win a round of a dice game. In that case, there would be 0 favorable outcomes because there is no 7 in the sample space. The sample space still only has 1 through 6 as possible outcomes. This makes rolling a 7 a deterministic event, which means that you already know the outcome prior to the event. The probability of rolling a 7 equals 0 divided by 6, which is 0. Sadly, you can't win. It's not possible to get a 7. Now let's think about a different example. You have a pile of candy. You count the pieces and find that 6 are pink and 2 blue. In total, you have 6 plus 2 pieces of candy, which is 8. Your friend then mixes them together and tells you to pick one at random with your eyes closed. What is the probability of picking a blue piece of candy? The probability of picking a blue piece equals the number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of possible outcomes. There are 2 blue candies and 8 candies in total. So, P of blue equals 2 over 8, or 1/4. 1 over 4 is equal to 0.25, or 25%. That means there is a 25% chance of picking a blue piece of candy at random. Now, let's say you had double the number of both colors of candy, 4 blue ones and 12 pink ones. What's the probability of picking a blue piece at random this time? Well, in total, you now have 4 plus 12, which equals 16 pieces. And there are 4 favorable outcomes as there are 4 blue ones. So the probability of picking a blue piece of candy is 4 over 16, or 1 over 4. Again, 1/4 equals 0.25, or 25%. That's the exact same answer you got last time, and this is no coincidence. The number of blue and pink pieces of candy were both doubled. That means the ratio between the number of blue pieces compared to the total number of pieces stayed the same. So the probability of picking a blue piece of candy at random will therefore also be the same. Between the first and second examples, you basically just expanded the fraction 2/8 by 2 to 4/16. You find the probability of an event by dividing the number of favorable outcomes by the number of possible outcomes. The probability of an event is always a value between 0 and 1. It can be given as a fraction, decimal, or percentage. The greater the probability, the more likely the event will happen.